Welcome to the Board Game Snobs podcast. Critically harsh reviews with a touch of class.
Go.
And welcome to the Board Game Snobs podcast. This is a special podcast because we have a guest. Not just me, although I am a special guest. Gobby's with us, but now we've got Bubba with us too.
Hey, I'd just like to say I kind of missed the intro.
Oh,
it made
you
me feel
did?
all fuzzy. Yeah, it made me feel all fuzzy inside when I hear the intro. But I'm still good. I imagine it in my head.
Maybe you have COVID.
Maybe so. The tests have been negative, but you never know.
You just come off of quarantine, so you're good. You have successfully beat COVID.
Yeah, I've come off like a triple quarantine. I'm like golden.
So you just blew right past me straight to Bubba. Hey, everybody. I'm here too.
Oh, yeah.
Gobby's here, but also Bubba. This is your annual appearance.
It is, man. I feel blessed. I feel like I'm being consistent, in my appearances.
Hey, quick question. So literally your wife had corona and
yes.
How did you not get it? Did you not kiss her?
Well, no, I'm we didn't change anything in our lives. And if I don't know, people may not know, we live in a very, 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 very tiny home. We like living in an original tiny home. And so we can't help but to, kind of go over each other. We didn't do anything really special for me not to get it. I just accepted my fate that I would get it. And then lo and behold, the angel spoke. My bloodline is strong like a American stallion. And I did not get COVID. I didn't even know. I'm a thoroughbred. I didn't even know it.
I don't even know what to say about that.
There's nothing to say. The man lived with someone with COVID for several weeks, never got it. I guess I can't dispute it.
Well, let me tell you something else to make this give me my Seabiscuit, heritage. Seriously,
don't break a leg anytime soon.
I know, right? So our neighbors who we often go over, they are one family. We live super, super close to them. I go over there all the time to do all the things that a guy does, from the refrigerator to whatever, tools, whatever. Well,
pee on the toilet.
Yeah, all that. So they have a family of 5 or 6 plus grandkids and everything. They all got COVID too. Like right before and during when my wife got it. Went over there all the time. They still didn't get it. I don't know. What can I say?
What can I say? I'm pretty fantastic.
I'm pretty okay. So there you go.
This is probably going to end up to be like one of those like Unbreakable, like the movie, like Bruce Willis. Like Bubba has discovered he's some sort of superhero. He has
they're going to be chasing him down to harvest his blood.
I know. You know what? I just thought about that and I realized I got COVID. I just realized that made me special. Maybe people might consider that. Big Pharma may hunt me down.
His metachlorian count is really high.
It's really high. He didn't even know, right? Big Pharma is out there.
But is Big Pharma like a rapper?
No, Big Pharma is
there
Big
a little?
Pharma.
There's a little farmer, and then there's Big Pharma.
No. I mean literally like the corporation Big Pharma, like the industry Big Pharma, the evil industry, because they are one of the most evil, unregulated industries in the world. But whatever. No. That's conspiracy.
They don't want you to give out the fact that the whole time you were taking vitamin C and zinc, and that was all you needed.
I will say this, and this may be something for people, but don't do this. I'm not advocating any medical advice, but I'm a constant person who has sinus infections. So I constantly take decongestants, and I do take fish oil and vitamin C and vitamin D all the time. Like it's part of my regular every morning thing. So I feel like I'm an old geriatric man. I take so many pills, but I don't know. Maybe that worked too. So
I just want to bring out that this is why we don't have Bubba on so often, because he's literally been on for 5 minutes and already has declared that he's some sort of superhuman ability to defeat COVID and called out the industries of the pharmaceutical companies and gave health advice to all of our listeners.
Be healthy.
A black van with Pfizer written on the side of it. You run away, Bubba.
I'm not. Well, I will say this: just because I didn't get COVID, I still got fat, so I'm not running anywhere.
Speaking of nothing related to that at all, I saw my first shoplifter at Walmart.
Oh, welcome.
And it was quite comedic. He literally, it was like out of the movie. Like, I'm like, I know you're a shoplifter because this is what they do in the movies. It was not a cold day, but he had on a large coat, and I rounded the corner, and he's literally sticking some pepperoni into his coat pocket.
No.
And I walk around the corner, and he looks up at me, and I look up at him. And it was the most awkward. I was like,
"You didn't see anything."
These are not the Ronies you're looking for.
You didn't tackle him, Gabi? Didn't call security?
No, we're told not to interfere, so I just gave him an old head nod. I wanted to say something like, "Really, pepperoni? What are you in here for?" "Well, there were some delicious pepperonis I wanted."
You don't feel sorry for him for stealing pepperoni, because you only steal pepperoni when you need it. That is not a.
Well, okay. I'm not. No, you're legitimately. I was thinking to myself of speaking about morals and ethics, and later in the show, in my mind, I'm like, is this man so hard up for food? He needs pepperoni, and he doesn't have the money to pay for it. So what do? Do I let this man starve, or do I let him steal this pepperoni? What do? Walmart has billions and billions and billions of dollars. They don't need that pepperoni. He does.
Right.
He's just stealing from Big Pepperoni. Another rapper that I enjoy. So no loss prevention on your part? You didn't turn him in? Don't y'all have undercover security guards to prevent loss?
I've always heard those rumors about Walmart, and there's somebody following me around. That's a Walmart undercover. No, I told my boss, and they just laughed. I mean, that was it.
So I don't often refer back to this time period of my life because I'm morbidly ashamed of it. But it used to be when I worked at Walmart, we had a loss prevention, and that provided the best moments of my life.
Quick question. You're ashamed of working at Walmart? I work there, sir.
Well, no. There is a limit. When you reach this time limit of working for Walmart, then you can be ashamed. Right now, you're in the unashamed time period. You're okay.
You're honeymooning.
You're honeymooning. Yeah. You're like a baby moon. You have something new. You're like in your baby moon stage.
You're still stomping your feet when they do the Walmart cheer.
Oh, yeah. You're still excited to be there and all that. Do they still do the Walmart cheer?
I'm real loud on the first W.
Yeah.
No, they don't. No, but they talk about it as if it's a thing. But there's a particular team lead in our area that tries to do it. She'll do it every now and then, but no one else ever does it ever, and no one joins her on it.
Well, I will tell you, every time I even think about it, like right now, since you just brought it up, every time I think about the Walmart cheer, I have to pee. Because I think that's the reaction that I get. Now, I'm not going to follow that thought through. You can, think about that yourself. But that's how my body responds to that. It's not PTSD. It's literally PTSD.
No, I thought every time you knew that was coming, you had to go pee. So you trained your mind to okay, the Walmart cheer, I got to go pee. Isn't that a thing? Like the dog? Isn't there the experiment with the dog?
That was salivating.
That's salivating. That's salivating. That's Pavlov.
Yeah. You Pavloved yourself into having to pee every time you hear the Walmart cheer.
Now, just to take this to a wide turn, I kid you not, every time I go to Home Depot and smell wood, I have to go pee. Every single time.
Hey, Bubba, give me a W.
No.
Give me an A.
Hey, you have to clap with it.
Don't you smell that rich mahogany?
That's right. Thank you for that. Oh, man. What can you say? It's Walmart ways.
Oh, and also another horrific thing that happened to me just yesterday. And I've been worried about this because it's Walmart and it's local in the area. And I grew up not an hour away from here, and people come here to shop, even though it's a long way to go. But they think that because Texas doesn't have tax on their food, it's worth it. I don't understand. They're driving an hour to get here. Maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, I ran into one of my best high school friends. I have not seen him in 20 plus years yesterday, and he did not recognize me because I'm fat and bald. And he literally came up to me and said, he looks the same. He's identical. Hasn't changed a bit. Makes me sick. Has all his hair. Hasn't aged a day. He has a 11 or 12-year-old son now. But he come up to me and said, "Oh, sir, where's your canned tomatoes?" I was like, "Thomas?" I said, and I had to say, "This is Gobby." And he's like, "Oh man, the mask. I didn't recognize you for the mask."
Oh yeah, that's what it was. It's the mask. Hey,
I
Gobby.
said, "Thomas," I said, "I've gained 100 pounds and I'm bald now. It's okay." He's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, this is my life. This is my life now. I work at Walmart.
Did you ask him why he was stealing pepperonis?
No, Jerry. I bet that if you would ask him if he had COVID, he would have said no. I'm like Seabiscuit. It's all right, because that's why. See, should have asked him, Gabby. He still got his hair. He still got his weight. COVID ain't got nothing on him.
Mm-hmm.
See what you learn at Walmart.
Yeah, he was. He looked the exact same. It's quite amazing.
It's quite amazing
and embarrassing.
Nah, it happens.
Also, before we go any further, I'm going through my list. I've had this stuff for a while. It's been a while since we recorded. I bought a wine that sold me. Whoever the market manager, madmen of this wine is, they need a raise. Well, first of all, it's the line of wines that's Ménage, Trois. Okay,
what?
Mm-hmm.
Ménage, Trois. Have y'all heard of that wine line?
Yes, I know what a Ménage Trois is, which is a good title for this podcast. Since there is three of us.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking. I'm out of this segment until I know what we're talking about. Continue on.
Okay, but the wine. So there's a line of wines called
Ménage Trois is French for endless breadsticks. Yeah. So whenever you're at Olive Garden, ask for the Ménage Trois.
That's what the Ménage Trois. They'll know. So ask for a French thing at an Italian restaurant.
Yeah, it's okay. They'll get it.
Okay, they'll get it. Okay, I got you. It translates well.
The wine itself is a Cabernet Sauvignon. But its name was Decadence.
Ooh.
And below where it says, okay, Decadence is a 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon, California. On the description, it has luxurious, rich, and seductive. I bought that sucker. I bought it right then and there, and I said, I got to taste that. What does luxurious, rich, and seductive taste like? Decadence, Ménage Trois. It was good. It's a $10 bottle of wine.
Well, in terms using descriptive terms like that, there is one that always gets me, and I am a sucker for succulent. Anything described as being succulent, I'm there. I don't know why, but if you put something on a label that lets me know, that suggests that this is succulent, I'm there.
I think that's what Mike DeLizio has said of his toes.
That's his LLC. Mike Delicious Toes, Succulent Incorporated.
Nope. I have nothing to say on the subject. Nope. But nice to know how you feel about it, though. And I may not trying that wine, by the way. Not trying it, bro.
It's good. It's semi-dry.
No, because think about what you're telling me. Hey, Bubba, come over one day and try this wine. Oh, what kind of wine is it? Oh, you'll love it. I felt like you're coming on to me or something, man. You have to try it. Oh, I'm good.
I told you, that guy earns a bonus, whoever come up with that tagline.
I'll give him credit. That's like a Victoria's Secret thing. That's what Victoria. It has the descriptions of things, and you're like, oh, I want to buy that. It sounds super nice, and you realize it's just the same $10 bra you can get at Walmart, but it just looks. It has a good, has a good tag on it. So it's like, oh, okay.
I'm about to say you're somehow saying that garments at Walmart are equivalent to those of Victoria's Secret. I don't know if I.
Let me not make that mistake. That was an oversimplification. I'm still right, but that was an oversimplification. I'm playing.
I buy my wife's undergarments at Sears.
No, not talking about that.
Okay, we're going to have to change the tone of this podcast to be a little more serious because we are about to hard merge into a serious topic. And so let me do my preamble real fast. And let me put on my serious voice. Okay.
Or just real quick, just visualize Jerry closing his eyes and taking off his glasses and rubbing his nose. Go ahead, Jerry.
Due to COVID, of course, we haven't been getting together an awful lot. So we've been supplementing our succulent podcast with interviews and
luscious, beautiful
guests such as Bubba and various others. And so we had planned on Bubba doing an episode with us. And I even had talked to him about doing perhaps a top 5 or something of that nature. And then some drama took place in the board gaming world, which, you know how we are about drama. We tend to avoid it. But we got an email from a Tyler from Chicagoland, from a fan of ours. And I will somewhat give a brief synopsis of his email. Essentially, there has been some hubbub over some comments that a certain designer, Daniel Tassini, has made, and some various other people in the board game industry. It all kind of happened within a week of each other, and I'm not going to get into the details of it. We'll just kind of leave that to your own. If you want to find out about it, you can go get on Twitter and dig through it. But Tyler asked an interesting question. He says, my question to you is this: as fans of their work, is it possible to like their creations and separate them from their worldviews? Or does buying/playing their games give them money and influence and thus provide them more of a platform to espouse these views? He goes on to say that he's a fan of this particular designer, but Tyler goes on to also say that this whole thing makes me feel icky. In this moral crisis and racial reckoning in the board game world, I knew that I should turn to the most down-to-earth and least qualified people possible, the snobs. Please help me and other board gamers make... Yes, please help us make sense of this. P.S. I fully understand if you don't want to talk about this on your podcast. It's a spicy topic. Well, of course, we don't want to talk about this on our podcast, but then after considering it, I do feel like it might be something that needs to be at least somewhat addressed. And so we were discussing this with Stanley, a.k.a. Bubba, who is often who we turn to when we have deep philosophical discussions. And we decided to save it for the podcast. And so that's part of the reason why we're kind of taking this brief jaunt and utilizing this episode to kind of catch up with Bubba, but also talk about and unpack some of this drama that's been going on in the board gaming world. So we thank you, Bubba, for being with us and for unpacking some of the more unsavory aspects of this situation and pretty much letting us piggyback on your emotional labor. And on that note, I'm going to open my beer.
But real quick, I mean, so the ones in big talks right now is Daniel Taschini, which is part of the Cranio Creations, Simone Luciani, I mean, Marco Polo, all the games that we like. We love them. Phil Eklund. Okay, Phil Eklund, I looked up his stuff. He did PAX Premiere the first edition. Did he? I mean, the second edition does not have his name on it. Do you know
it wasn't
why?
done by him. That's done by Cole Worley. He assisted on it. But yeah, Phil Eklund and also the CEO of Funnigan Games has said some rather condescending and sexist things. I mean, all this stuff, I don't want to get into the...
Right. But I do like to say the names because when people are vague, sometimes it's like, who are you talking about? Well, who should I avoid? And they're like, Google it yourself. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. But I'm lazy
And I also want to bring out is that we're not telling anybody to avoid anybody. This is really just for our own edification on this topic and really to help us kind of. This is certainly one of those topics that we should have discussed before turning on the microphone. But again, it's so much funner just having hot takes. And so that's where we're at. So that's why, yes. And so that's why I wanted to complete or finish this conversation that I was having with Bubba regarding this. So Bubba, what is your thoughts on this matter as I drink my beer?
You drink away. I want to say this first because I read the email that Tyler sent in. And first of all, beautiful baby girl. I think he said it was a baby girl. So very beautiful family. Very nice. And never been to Chicago, so I got to go. I think it's a great city with great food, apparently. So I got to do that. But to the question that he asked, and I had looked up that Tassini and the T guy, as I call him, because all his board games start with T's. The one of the questions that he asked was kind of a simple one, I think, but was deep at the same time. Which is, to sum it up, is it possible to separate a person's creation, like board games, from, their worldviews? I think that's how he put it. My opinion, the short answer is, yeah, sure, no problem. Why not? I mean, because you're playing a board game, you're not really playing the board game and having him talk to you and express his worldviews and trying to inculcate them into you, which would probably violate your conscience and your sense of worldview. So that's the short answer. Yes, you can if you like. I think the more nuanced answer is when you ask a question like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gabi and Jerry, when you ask a question like that, it's not really it's less of a reflection on the person and more on the reflection of who you are as a person, right? In other words, if I play this person's game or their creation content, am I connecting myself with a person who thinks like that? The degree of separation, is it far enough for me where I can play that game and feel okay? Or is that too close? And it's really more of a reflection on what you think as a person or how you feel about it. And I know that may seem like a shallow reasoning, but some people are going to say you can't separate it. I can't support this person with their worldview, and so I'm not going to play their game. Or by playing their game, am I subtly affecting my own psyche or the way I see things? And if you look at his board games, does it reflect his worldview? Of course it does. But it doesn't have to be your worldview. It may be to you that it's just fun. Or it may be something completely different. But that's my take on that simple question. I thought that was a good question to ask, but ultimately it's a personal question to answer. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Probably less than 2. Let's say 1.5.
I would say, just real quick on the point of simply asking the question, I'm that guy too, but someone that asks the question, what would you do, means to me, you're kind of relying on the societal norms or ethics to influence your own opinion. In other words, I don't know what to do. There are people that automatically are like, no, I will never play another game of his again. I don't want to support him and give him a platform. And there's people that are like what you said. They're like, yeah, I have no problem with it. I like his games. I don't care what he thinks.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, so you have that. The reason why I say that is because, I have the ability to do it. But I certainly understand you are contributing by not saying something, by not speaking up. Do you take your stand? As a friend of mine always says, is this a hill that you're willing to die on? Do you take a stand to hopefully have a measurable impact? I get that. I get it. I understand it. But where is the impact at? You know how you feel about the game. You know how maybe your friends feel about it and the people around you feel about it. Is it really going to impact him? If you say, hey, I'm not going to buy your game or whatever, well, financially it may, but is it going to change his worldview? Even if financially it does, is that really sincere? These are things that should be obvious, that if you do something of a certain way, that it's going to cause a certain hysteria or a certain concern. Hysteria is the wrong word. A certain concern, just common sense. So if you hadn't got it by now, you know what I'm saying? If you or I use a charged word you know it's charged, and you use it in a public space where people have access to it, you know that it's going to cause a reaction. That's common sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like if my mom was alive and I went at her and I said the F word. You don't curse around my mother at all. I don't curse myself, but especially around my mom. Am I going to be surprised that she now wants to beat me? Of course not. That's a normal response. So if you use a charged word, especially socially, especially certain types of words, you know how people are going to respond to that. Whether you agree or disagree is irrelevant. You know.
And that's a good point. I think a lot that was brought out, though, especially with Daniel Tassini and the CEO of Fun Again Games, both of their comments, I think, were made in private, either in text messages or through emails, and then were later made public. And so I think that brings some context to it, that this wasn't a private conversation, and there's the context of it. And so, yeah, this wasn't them just going crazy on stage and saying something off-putting. This was something in a conversation that they were having, and that perhaps lends a little bit of credence to how they truly feel about matters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you also have to think about this. It's once that word is out there, you can't walk it back or give it context, even if it's from a conversation that's private that is now went public. You can't explain it away because you used the word. You know what I'm saying? It's already, once it becomes public, it's public. You apologize and you move on with your life, because there's no amount of explaining or rationale that's going to overcome that word. And in my perspective, and nor should there be. I mean, because of what the word means. But I'll give you the leeway and the understanding that if you want to use it in private between you and your friends and how y'all feel about it and whatever, it doesn't offend me. I'm not there to listen to it. I'm not going to censor what you should say privately. But understand that when you use that word, the example that has already been set is it may come out. If it does, then now it's no longer private, and you have to handle those consequences as such, whether it's your fault or not. You still use the word. So does that make sense?
So yes, what you say makes sense. This is going along with Tyler's question. I think it's probably at least a threefold process. As content consumers, players of these games, and of course, and this goes beyond games. We're talking about books, movies, all created by people that have horrific backgrounds. H.P. Lovecraft, apparently Roald Dahl was a terrible person. Teddy Roosevelt was extremely racist. Woodrow, I looked up, I did research on, there's tons of people in history that are beheld as great people that they were horrifically racist. So, can you separate the creation from the creator and just appreciate what they did? Thomas Edison was a terrible person, but yet I like electricity. Okay. Then we might get into the whole thing of, well, they're dead and long gone. Okay. Well, how long do they have to be dead before I can appreciate or use something or enjoy whatever? I'm getting off my own track, but so separation of creator from creation. Can you enjoy it? B, should you enjoy it? So that's when you kind of get, to me, into the morals, your own morals or ethics. And I had to look up the difference between morals and ethics. They're, obviously they're similar, but what I gathered is that morals are your own principles. Ethics is apparently the society or the group or the culture that you're in's moral principles. And that's a wide variance there. So the issue is then things become subjective because people don't like to be subjected to someone else's point of view. They want to exercise their free will. Okay, I see many hands raised. I'm going to stop talking for a moment. Jerry?
Okay, well, I appreciate your point. Yes, to answer somewhat Tyler's question regarding can you appreciate their creation and separate their worldview? Yes, you can appreciate the creation. I would argue, though, is that there are some instances where their creation is affected by their worldview. And I'll use Tassini as an example. A lot of his games, Teotihuacan and the various other ones that he has made, people have pointed out that there have been some misrepresentation of this theme that probably would not have been there if the person or the designer, the company, the producer, whomever had done some research in regard to that actual culture. So is that an unforgivable sin? I mean, go watch any movie that's historically based, and of course, there's always going to be some errors in it. But the question is this creator taking advantage of other cultures' properties or things of that nature to an extent, and perhaps even presenting them in a way that's misaligned, that is not necessarily correct. And so, yes, you can appreciate the art, you can appreciate the creation, and yes, I do feel like you can separate that from the creator, from the designer as a whole. But at the same time, I can see where one could argue that the designer, due to their own bias, the way that they create and what they create can affect the creation, and thus that can affect your viewpoint of it.
You can get into a lot of different, what some people call gray areas. I remember, if you want to ever bring about ethics and morality, and when that comes to a stop, it's when you see the consequences of such, because you get to see the effects of it. This issue of separating the creator from the content or from the creation, you can go a lot of different ways with it. I think the issue becomes this: you as a human being can separate that, and it doesn't affect your worldview. Therefore, the consequences of his creation, if it is racist, truly racist, or you see undertones or whatever it is, doesn't affect you. There is no consequences. You're not going to suddenly turn around and turn into a racist person or suddenly adopt that word point of view. So now your ethics and morality have failed. If the creation, though, is so powerful and cuts so deep into people and has such a profound effect that it still causes something, well, then now you have a problem. So and the reason why I say that is this: there are some things that have happened last year, there's some things happened 400 years ago, 200 years ago, that still have a very profound effect in reality of causing things that we don't like racism, prejudice, etc., etc. That creation cannot be separated from its effects. That means then it has a problem. You shouldn't participate in that. So the same way as with this board game, if the board game causes something or breaks a person's morality and ethics as an individual or on a social scale, well, then now the separation between content and creator, it's not there. You may want to stop playing the game. But if it doesn't do that for you and it's not causing that on a social issue, a large scale, then yeah, go ahead and play it. Do your thing, whatever you want to do. So that's how I quantify that.
And I think that's a succinct way of putting that. The second question that Tyler had was, does buying and playing these games give them money and influence and thus provide them more of a platform to espouse these views? And so that really is the heart of the matter to me, because I think that, let's be realistic, this designer has, or this creator or this producer or CEO, whoever has said these things. Do I want to take my business to this place? And in doing so, am I somehow equipping them or not rewarding their bad behavior? But I don't want to use the term condoning, but it's as if you somehow don't put the same. It's not like you don't care about their behavior. It's almost as like, yeah, you recognize this behavior as being troublesome, but you don't want to do anything about it.
Gabby, what say you, sir? What you think?
Well, that's kind of what I was going into with. Well, then it becomes a question of your own morals and ethics, because like we said, okay, so you're reaching out to others. What do you think? Well, for Tyler, for myself, for anybody else that has a question, should I do this? Really, it all boils down to your own conscience. If I do this, will it bother my conscience? Yes or no? To me, it's that simple. I can play this game. It's not going to bother me. I don't care. Or I'm going to play this game. Yeah, but I'm giving this guy money. Now he can espouse his views. It all boils down to, what are you comfortable with?
Well, I guess I understand what you're saying, and I understand what Jerry's saying. Here's what I'll say to subjectivity. Again, ethics and morality, subjectivity, ultimate truth. We won't get into all that. When you see the results of what you do, when you see the results of something, so the ultimate consequences of subjectivity, when it just falls away, is reality, right? Because what you're saying is, my conscience, I'm going to make this conscious matter and this conscious decision, and then I have to live with that conscious decision. Yeah, but you need to understand what that means. So for me, on this, I thought it was an interesting question Tyler gave. It's a good question. Am I essentially, as Jerry said, condoning this by giving him a platform? The answer to that question is yes, you are. Because you give him money, he uses that money to increase his platform. So now, what consequences is that? May not be any. If you can separate yourself, again, from those consequences, people do it all the time. So, that's the great tragedy about human beings, is we can support somebody and then they go do something. You go, well, I supported them, and they did this terrible thing, but I didn't support that. Well, I mean, if you want to rationale that way, that's not based in reality, but that's your choice. So the issue now becomes, my conscience, does it allow me to be okay with the consequences of him? What is the consequences, the next step in this logical process of supporting him? Is there going to be someone who looks at this board game or looks at this essay or whatever it may be, and somehow that changes who they are, that influences them, and then they go do this terrible thing? Something that I absolutely cannot live with based on my conscience. Because we can give money to a guy on his platform. He can say stupid stuff that we disagree with. You think, oh, whatever, it's stupid. But carry that logic forward. If you think it's plausible, it may not be plausible, but if you think it's plausible that this guy is going to say stupid things and it's going to help cause, support, plant a seed in somebody that they themselves are going to do terrible things, can you live with that terrible thing? You may live with what he says. You may live with the fact he makes a wonderful board game. You can play it. Can you live with that possibility? Now, if that possibility is remote to you, or that's an implausible scenario, then yeah, go ahead and do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a person who sees that and goes, I can see the consequences of that, well then, hey, I need to stop. And I want to be very careful here. In no way am I being political either which way. I don't belong to any party. So you have to decide as a person whether you can deal with that. That involves your conscience, but it's conscious built in reality, because this is not a thought process. It's an absolute factual action that happens. Very few people can live with actual facts. Ethics and morals are ethereal until they put into reality. Reality makes everything real. So that's all. That's my 10 cents on that. Not saying you shouldn't. By the way, Tyler, if you're listening, if you want to buy the game and play it, man, I'm cool with that. If you don't want to do it, I'm cool with that too. It's just that's how my mind works on questions like these.
And of course, like I mentioned prior, we're not advocating any particular stance on it, just because of the fact that I do feel like it's a personal choice. I can see the sides of, and that tends to be the viewpoint being expressed, is that some people are completely done with this designer, this company, and so forth, to the point of they're even, burning their board games and not playing them and having nothing to do with them, or going as far as saying they won't buy another one of their designs and so forth. And all that, I believe, is it's up to the individual. It's they understand. My issue, I think, with it is, of course, Daniel Tassini himself. Many of the games for which he has designed, I would say, are in my top 10. And so what I am trying to wrap my mind around is, by a few weeks from now, a few months from now, we're probably going to do our top 10, top 20, something of that nature. And I'm going to say, oh, I love Marco Polo. Daniel Tazzini is part of the design team. Is that going to be troublesome? Is it going to be an issue that I like a game that is connected with this designer who may, for all I know, may never design again? There may, the companies might cut him and not have anything to do with him because of what he said. My point being is, by playing these games and then saying, yeah, this is my top 10, this is an excellent game, is that somehow platforming him? That is my question, really. I really think that that's what's the essence of what Tyler is pointing to, just a little more succinctly, though, is it wrong to like a game designed by somebody that is now no longer in vogue, I guess?
Are you saying, so you can look at this two different ways, Jared, and I need clarification. To look at it in a small world way, you're just looking at how it affects you. If you're looking at it in a big world view, that's a different thought process. So what are you saying?
In a small world view, I'm going to play Marco Polo, and it is in no way going to affect me what any of the designers have said or done in the past, because I'm just playing a game. I'm enjoying the game. There is nothing troublesome about the game that I can pick up from, and so it's just a fun game. But from a big world view, I have this small podcast that occasionally I ramble on about great games that I enjoy. Will it be troublesome when I go and say, hey, this is a great game, and then later somebody points out, hey, but the designer of it, this guy had said some awful things? Is that somehow giving credence to that designer from a global view, a big world view there? That's my
So you
worry.
have this idea that I think Ryan said in his email. I don't have his email in front of me, but he mentioned in this the racial reckoning. I think he used that term, didn't he, in his email? So that is a big picture thing. It just truly is. Of course, this time we're living in, we can see that. So this is how I reduce that down. I boil that down. If you equate that there is a problem globally or in your nation or whatever, and it's been a persistent problem, or now you recognize that it's a persistent problem, that a lot of people have it, you're going to try your best to avoid it in every area of life. TV shows, board games, whatever that may be. So I'm not going to support this in any way because I want to tamp down on this problem, whether that problem is new to you or not. The reason why I'm trying to be very unbiased here is it depends on who you are as well. If you are a person in your life who did not know, I had a person recently tell me, I just didn't know racism was so prevalent in the world. Well, I don't have that problem. I know it's prevalent. I live it. It's not a surprise to me. So my reaction to it is a little different. I don't expect people to change. I know people can. I've seen people do that. But by and large, people don't change because they're not rational. Racism itself is not rational. So it doesn't bother me to play a game that I know somebody who's racist or who has issues, if indeed they are. I'm okay with that. If it goes to a certain level, then I'll stop. That's a big world point of view. That's the social, racial reckoning that if you choose to look at. So yeah, you may have an issue if people who listen to you are going through that in their life and recognizing that I'm gonna tamp down on this in all areas. But if people aren't in that frame of mind, I think they can separate the creator from the content, from the creation. And you don't have a problem. So that is not subjective. Some people say, well, as a conscience, it's subjective. It depends on the individual person. I think it's less so of that. It's more of how far do you want your participation to go? How far do you want your voice to make things change? How far do you want that to do? That is an individual decision that then will dictate your action and even your conscience and how you feel about it.
Well, I think you hit on something that I was thinking about, in that a lot of it is going to depend on how you have been or being personally affected by whatever is happening. Are you a friend of Daniel Tazzini or Phil Eklund or Jeff DeBoer, or, well, you're going to try probably to figure out what's going on, see if you can defend him somehow. Or if you are in part of the people that have been hurt or offended or abused or whatever, then you're going to feel very strongly the other way. Or if you're someone from a distance, you're probably going to be like, I don't know. So a lot of that, just like you said, racism, somebody that's never experienced those effects, is completely foreign to them. If something affects you personally, then obviously you're going to have a way stronger opinion. You're going to take a way stronger stance towards those things.
Well, and I'll say this just to agree with you. This is what I always found, and this is not an odd thing. This is a normal human response. When a person says social reckoning, you realize that this has nothing to do with people who always feel racism, right? There is no social reckoning. There is no awakening for people who experience racism and knows it exists. The reason why this has become such an issue in board gaming and other areas of life is because the people who should have been aware of it, and this is not putting anybody down, and this is not saying people are stupid or people are ignorant or whatever it may be. But what has happened is people have become aware of not only that racism exists or that prejudice, whatever you want to call it, exists in such a wide swath of what we do, of a human experience, even in board gaming, and the collective guilt of, or the collective self-acknowledgement of, let me not say guilt, the collective self-acknowledgement of, oh my God, am I contributing to it? Because I didn't know that it existed. Am I contributing to this? Do I need to stop what I'm doing? How do I do my part in not doing that? And I think that is an admirable question to have. Do I keep buying this board game to boost its platform? I think that is a good question to ask yourself if this is a new thought to you. But I'm not the banner of everything people feel when they experience racism. I have different opinions, I'm sure, with other people who feel it all the time, and probably more so in more profound ways than I do. I live in America. I mean, I have it good compared to a lot of other people, so I can't complain, or I don't have a full knowledge of that. But for those of people who are just asking themselves that question, yeah, I think it's a good question to ask. I think you'll come to terms with it progressively. I think it'll mean a lot to you, and you'll make your own decisions about that. And just by asking the question, this is one of those things that by asking the question and then taking a proactive approach, even if you make a decision different than somebody else, you're contributing to the best of your ability to the good that you're trying to accomplish. And just by nature of doing the process, of acknowledging and doing the process, I think it's good, whether you decide to play the board game or not. So I think that's a good thing.
I was really hoping you would just come on here and tell us what we needed to do. You have not been very helpful.
Well, because you don't want to just pop it out there like that, Well, because here's this. If a person says no, here's the odd thing about this, and you tell me what you think. The only reason why we're having this discussion about Mr. T is that now we have knowledge, firsthand personal knowledge, that he has espoused these point of views, or Eklund. We know this. We have knowledge about these people. Do you think realistically, of all the board game designers, that you or somebody else have spent hundreds of dollars on a designer that has even more insidious viewpoints than they do? Yes, you have.
I told someone the other day that I hope that I don't find out that Martin Wallace believes the earth is flat.
Yeah. So if you decide that, hey, I can't buy this and support this guy, then you have to ask yourself the question of, will I feel more comfortable if everybody gives me their worldview so that I'm okay with them, so I won't support them? So that's, if I say, hey, no, you shouldn't do it, you should apply that across the board. If I say, yes, you should do it, well, that means it shouldn't matter what anybody says. Well, that's not plausible. That's not great. So you have to be discerning. It requires a good heart. It requires a good heart to make those decisions. And ultimately, that's what I said in the beginning. It's less about the person. It's more about who we are as individuals in our hearts, and who do we want to be, and what views do we want to encourage. And hopefully we're positive people. And I think all people who listen to Board Game Snobs are pretty good people. I've never known a person not to be. So
yes, Enrique, but he doesn't listen to us. So I guess that says a lot about him. Yeah, and to close this out, and I think that we've talked around this, and like I said, this was just something that we were having this discussion anyway. We figured we might as well put it out there for the fans before we moved on to Bubba's. Well, next episode we'll do.
Yeah, let's do that, man.
Top 5. But yeah, in terms of episodes and of designers, I just think about Alexander Pfister, who a lot of his themes of his board games dealt with colonialism.
Yeah.
And then here a few months back, after a very popular board game last year, Maracaibo, he talked about that he just wasn't going to make games of that theme really anymore. He was going to branch out and do something else. And I thought in terms of that was very proactive. What you espoused about us having to be careful about condoning certain activities, but at the same time, we can't go around and know intently what's in the heart of every designer and what's their worldview. We just simply can't do that. But at the same time, just being careful and making the decision ourselves. I think that's a wise thing.
Hard stance either which way. Yeah, I'll do that for you just because.
Broccoli or cauliflower?
Broccoli. Cauliflower
Okay.
is
I'm done. I'm done.
Tasteless.
I'm done. End this podcast. End it now.
Yeah. But by the way, cauliflower is a lot more. It's a lot healthier for you supposedly, but I still don't like it. Hate it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Okay. Well, this is our first time recording on Zencastr, so I hope this episode actually saves and airs. If it does, I like this app. It would really suck if we did an hour of great philosophical minds joining together to save the world, but
tune in next week for Bubba's Top 5 and, of course, his thoughts on QAnon.
Peace. I'll see you later. I have no comment. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Board Game Snobs. Stay classy.